The Singapore Premier League returns after a 2-week international break, and that means it's time for SPL Express to look ahead to Matchweek 6 in the SPL. Hi, I'm Abhishek, Ravikrishnan, and I'm joined by Rhysh, Roshan, and there's lots of exciting football in store over the weekend, and it starts with a mouth-watering clash at our Tampines hub. It's Tampines Rovers up against Lion City Sailors in a clash that sees the top two teams in the league standings go up against each other. Meanwhile, Hougang United take on Brunei DPMM at the same time, with both sides needing to overturn poor starts to their seasons. Saturday sees Tanjong Pagar entertain Young Lions, while Albirex are away at Geylang International. A quick look at the standings, and Tampines Rovers are at the top, a point ahead of the Sailors, but that could change this weekend. Albirex are fourth after their first defeat of the season. Hougang, Tanjong Pagar, Brunei DPMM and Young Lions meanwhile are all currently on 3 points with just one win so far. So let's start with that big one at our Tampines hub. Tampines Rovers up against Lion City Sailors. Roshan, let's discuss the significance this could have on the title race, especially considering how good these two sides can be and the history between these two sides. Yeah,
there's quite a bit of history, a bit of drama between these two sides. We've seen, especially last year, some of the incidents that happened between these two teams. And, you know, there's also quite a healthy rivalry, I think, you know, on and off the pitch between these two sides. Both sets of fans have a bit of a go at each other at times as well. So that's good to see. And in terms of the fact that these two are, it's very early days in the league, but these two sides are kind of leading the way in the top two positions of the standings. It says a lot about their intentions this season, about how well they obviously want to do. And to be fair, we did regard these sides as potential title challengers. But to see them there, to see them sort of playing a style of football that's quite entertaining. I think especially Tampines Rovers, who have been playing, for me, the best football in the league, both with the ball and without it as well.
Well, when we look at the next four fixtures for both teams, how important is this clash for Tampines and the Sailors?
It's always important, right? I mean, yes, we'll say, again, go back to the fact that it's still very early on in the season, but you could see how much that win for Tampines against Albirex, how much it meant for them and how much it meant to Albirex to lose that. You know, and it gives you a bit of a psychological boost whenever you come up against your rivals and you're able to beat them. Obviously, across the campaign, as the months go by, as the weeks go by, the matches go on, you want to try and have that consistency. But anytime you get a chance to really sort of come up against a rival and beat them and defeat them and give them that little bit of a psychological blow, you always look forward to taking it. And you look at some of the matches that they have coming up as well. Hougang, you know, they're struggling at the moment in the league, but not necessarily an easy side to take on. Geylang are there as well in those lists of fixtures. So yeah, you know, this is again one of those that they want to try and deal a bit of a blow to the opposition.
We talk about duels on the pitch, and one of the interesting talking points for this game is Faris Ramli, because he comes across from Sailors and he's had quite a season with Tampines so far. What has been the difference to his game, or how he's been deployed this season? Yeah,
I think going back to the first question that you asked me about how important this game is, as well as the tactical styles of play, and you know, they've both got interesting ways of approaching the matches. I think for Tampines Rovers, there's a bit more control in the overall game, whereas for the Lion City Sailors, I think they try and get it forward a bit quicker. At times they do press higher, they try and play on a transition a little bit more because they have the pace up front to do that. For Tampines Rovers, and coming back to Faris Ramli, I think that the control in their game helps Faris as well, in terms of the positions that you can occupy, the positions that you can take up, and the relationship that he's got in and around him. You look at his goals this season, and all of them have come from inside the penalty area. Okay, you think back to the one against Geylang, there was a pass in through that he had to run from a wider position, get into the box, created himself a little bit. But the other goals that he scored were all because he's taking advantage of the movements of Boris Kopitovic, for example. Defensive eyes are going to be on Kopitovic, and when he sort of drops in to draw defenders towards him, that leaves some of that gap and some of that space for Faris to then occupy. And you look at those positions that he's taking up. Boris peels out wide, Kopitovic peels out wide, sends a cross in, Faris is there to finish off. The other relationship that he's got that's working really well is down the right-hand side with Irfan Najib. At times, Faris can drop into the half space, Irfan can provide width for Tampines going forward, or they can both play in those areas. So they've got nice little rotations in the squad. Overall, tactically, under Gavin, they're playing some really good football. There's a good understanding within that side. And Faris is just, you know, aside from that tactical element and getting himself into good positions, he's playing with a lot of confidence and he's enjoying his football, and that's really important.
Well, you mentioned how good Tampines have been this season. With the ball, we know that what they can do, or what they try to do. One thing that's changed this season for them is defensively, because last season, especially the first half of the season, they struggled defensively, but they seem to have turned that around.
They seem to have turned that around. And yes, I think Zlatkovic coming in has made a big impact in their side. Him and Yamashita are very strong, give them that stability in central defense. Then you look at the midfield, and they have these two controllers, technically very good players in Shah and Nakamura, and both players who are good, comfortable receiving under pressure and help them build up their play through the midfield, but also help control things in the center of the park for them. So they do have quite a strong spine in that sense through the middle of the pitch. But also for Tampines Rovers, what you see from them in their matches is at times they are quite happy to slow the game down and be very patient with how they pick the passes forward and how they pick their moments to attack. So their game management to me is actually looked very mature in the early stages of the season. It looks like they're managing games really well. They can kill the tempo of matches. So when you see sides, there has certainly been improvement. When you see sides like that with the ability to change the tempo of their play, it's usually the sign of a very good team and how they can vary the way they go out and try and solve problems out on the pitch.
It'll be interesting to see that one. Tampines up against the Sailors. As we mentioned, both teams will be playing Hougang in the upcoming weeks. Hougang, they face Brunei DPMM. Both teams have not had the best of starts, and Hougang especially, because as you mentioned before, they are title contenders. I thought
they should be. Yeah, I thought they should be, right? And you're quite right to point out the fact that having lost the last 3 games, in the league, it's a poor start. There's no sort of covering it up, right? It's worrying because it looks like the moment they lost Krajcek, everything's just gone downhill. And that's always a concern. Yes, there are important players in sides across the league, but for one player to have that much of an impact, the moment he goes missing, it almost seems like everything else falls apart.
But it's baffling to some extent because they have quality in their team.
That's right, they do, and that shouldn't be the that shouldn't be the case. And that's what I mean. Like just because Krajcek's out, he's an important player. He's a very good player. But just because he's out, there should be others in the side able to sort of pick up the slack and not sort of fall away as they have. When you look at some of the goals that they have conceded this season, there's a little bit of at times an element of slight misfortune with certain things. But the other side to looking at it is, you could say, on the one hand you say misfortune, on the other side it's a lack of concentration. People switching off in certain phases. You're not tracking runners into the box, not clearing properly, not getting themselves in the right positions, not stopping the play a little bit earlier.
Isn't this something we discussed last season as well?
It is. And that I know where you're sort of going towards. It's the poor start that they had last season's campaign where they struggled for a bit. And we also expected them to do a lot better last season in terms of a title challenge. They picked it up, to be fair to them, towards the end, and certainly picked it up in the Singapore Cup. Yeah. But this time around, you thought that there'd be a lot more organization in the side. You thought there'd be a lot more fluidity in the side. And I don't know if it's a situation where they need to try and go back to the Hougang from a couple of seasons ago, who are playing that great football, counter-attacking, high pressing, high energy, high intensity, playing well on the transitions. Because to me, when I've seen Hougang over the last few years or so, under Clement and Firdaus, when they have played their best football for me is in those moments when they're playing at a high intensity, playing at a high tempo, and playing counter-attacking football. Right now, I'm not sure with this style of play that they have, where it's a bit more possession-based, it's a bit slower at times to try and draw the opposition press, whether it quite works for them overall, and in certain moments whether they can manage the opposition transition well. Listen, again, it is still very early on the season. It could click for them at some point and come along. But they've got to start picking up results here. And against DPMM, who have been poor as well in the league so far, this is a great opportunity for them to get a win. Well,
one team that recently picked up a good result is Young Lions. They went into the break after that win, the late victory. They play Tanjong Pagar. Young Lions' majority of the squad were involved in the Merlion Cup as well. How do you see Young Lions approaching this game, especially after that Merlion Cup?
Yeah, you said they picked up a good win, and it was a good win against Hougang. And then came the Merlion Cup, where, as you mentioned, the majority of their players were involved in that competition. So, to me, it feels like it'll be another kick to their confidence. Playing against other under-23 sides around the region, and then not really getting the results and not really putting in the performance that you think they're capable of. Now they go back into league action, and you have to feel like it's difficult for Young Lions to expect consistency from them. Because they're a young side, we know that it's been a challenge for them in terms of the quality of the players that they have. And not just that, the fact that they're obviously not a professional side in the league. They've got players who have national service commitments to fulfill. So it's going to be tough to sort of expect consistency. And difficult to sort of figure out which Young Lions is going to show up. If it's the Young Lions that showed up in the second half against Hougang, where they had Hougang pinned back, then yeah, they've got a really great chance against the Tanjong Pagar side, who themselves haven't really been very good this season. And they got Mudrazia up front, who, I don't know, he's not Ryo Nishiguchi, is he? Who single-handedly carry the team and score all those goals. And that's the concern for me when it comes to Tanjong Pagar.
Well, they could see Jacob Mahler back in the squad for Young Lions as well. How big a boost will that be?
It will be a boost. Obviously, you want a leader in there and a player who has experience and is capable and will add quality to the side overall. But again, he's one guy coming in, and I'm not sure how much of a transformative impact he can make on this Young Lions side. He's got to have players around him as well who are also going to lift their game match after match. And so it is a challenge. It is going to be a very challenging season for Young Lions. And as I said, it's very difficult to figure out and to expect consistency from them this year.
Well, Geylang International, let's talk about them now. They also have a challenging game this weekend. It's up against Albirex Negata. One player who's really stood out for Geylang is Naufal Azman.
Yeah.
Playing in the number 9 role,
Yeah.
you mentioned false 9 at times, replacing Simi Zuzul.
Yeah.
Big boots to fill. How have you seen his season pan out so far?
Well, obviously a very different player to Sime Zuzul and what Sime Zuzul was able to bring to Geylang last year. And I feel at times Geylang have had problems with that position, a number 9 and a pure number 9 who can finish off goals and create chances on his own, which is what Zuzul gave them. But Naufal is playing in that role, but he's not exactly an out-and-out number 9. He drops off into deeper areas to try and link the play. So he's almost playing as that, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, a false 9 or whatever term you want to use. He kind of just plays in that role, links the play, allows runners to get in behind him, combines with Bezakor well. But he's getting significant game time. He's still only 24 years of age. Yes, he hasn't scored in the league for the last 3 years prior to this one, but the fact that he's got 2 now in 6 games, I think shows that he's sort of growing into his role with this Geylang international side. And the fact that he's playing, he's getting minutes, he's getting consistent starts. And obviously the coaching staff there have confidence and are giving him that confidence, and that really helps. So hopefully his development can continue. Singapore is short on strikers right now, or attacking players who can make a difference. So hopefully his development continues for his sake, for his club, and for country as well, potentially.
Well, those are the 4 games that we have this weekend. Let's look at our feature game. It's Tampines Rovers up against Lion City Sailors. That's at our Tampines hub. Do take note of the timing. Coverage begins from 8 p.m. on Friday, and Colette Wong will be with Shashi Kumar to bring you all the lead up to kickoff. So lots of football to look forward to. Do head down to the grounds if you can, but if you can't, all the games are live on our YouTube channel, so you can catch it there. We'll be back for SPL Express next week. Till then, goodbye.